Welcome back to the Farmer on the Wall. It's a sunny September day here in South Carolina. That is foreshadowing what we're going to talk about on this update. I went all in on my last episode. I said I was trying out some power stations. They're basically call them electric generators. It's just a big battery that can suck up solar or grid power and then back up your system. So rather than have a boring UPS, I decided to upgrade to a power station. These things are going super cheap on Amazon right now. All they do is take in multiple types of power and put out multiple types of power. You can see right now I got a solar cable running through a sweet connection that just slips right through my window, and I have to drill a hole in the house, luckily. As far as I can tell, there's no air leaks or anything coming out of there, so for now that works. Solar comes all the way down here into the solar generator. You can see right now it's getting 162 from this single panel. It's not fully in the sun, so I get a decent amount. But that's powering up a lot of the power requirements for this and sucking off the battery. Later, when the sun gets more fully on the panel, I'll be able to get about 200 to 300 watts. It won't quite charge back the battery, but it will take a significant amount of the kilowatt hours I got to take off for this machine from the solar panel. So it's the AC70 powering the Gigahorse. This is the one with slightly less power requirements because it's got a higher compression. You can see here, it's got a few less drives. So this one doesn't need as much as the Farmer over here. Both these have a petabyte. This has a little less compression, so it uses less power to decompress, but it still has a lot more drive. So it doesn't quite equal out. This takes a little bit more power, but it's running the official one, so I got to pay less for the Chia that I mine. This one is running off the new Bluetti Elite 100 V2. This has a little bit higher capacity than the AC70 I just showed you, but more importantly, it's got 1,000 watt solar input, which means this can take 2 solar panels. And you can see right now it's getting 500 watts from both those panels combined. And you can see same sweet way that I ran the cable in through the window. So I just got lucky there. Otherwise you got to drill a hole to get these things in here. So this one is actually charging the battery, and it's a little bit smarter. The UPS in here says you want to use PV priority. What it's going to do is take in as much photovoltaic as you can, and that's why you see they got 500, and charge up the battery up to 100%. And then once it loses the solar, it's going to drop down to 50% and keep it there so that you have that 50% extra to suck up any extra solar that you have. And for this machine particularly, you can see it's running 458, 460 peak, drops down to about 400. So the 498 is more than enough to cover that, plus anything extra was going to go right into that battery and charge it up for later. This is one of the systems I'm actually using all those outs they have. You can see all these plugs run to the various hard drives on the wall. All those adapters right there are AC. I'm thinking about switching to DC, but earlier I checked that there's not a lot of gain from that. This is the main system drives over here. And then I have some cheat drives that aren't on the wall. This is an exclusive. These drives, I didn't have anywhere to put them, so they're stacked up. I got 10 drives right here. They run off 2 adapters, which, if you can believe it or not, they actually included barrel plugs on this power generator. So I have one of the barrel plugs I'm using for one of the disc packs, and then I've got the cigarette lighter for the other disc pack. And that's just so I make sure the output here that it says it's got, I think 8 amps, and then I got 10 amps over here. I didn't want to overload both the barrel plugs. That's the DC out, and then we got the AC out. So this is one busy little power generator. And for, I think it was only 400 bucks on Amazon, it is quite a deal. And if you can't even get a UPS, well, I can get it, I guess for 200 you get a UPS. It's just a boring battery UPS with no solar input. This is a steal for backing up your computer. And as you can see, I can go 30 hours running this thing without any grid. So I've got 30 hours if the solar stays at this level before it runs out of power. So this is the solar farm. 2 panels on the far left here are hooked up in parallel. They put out about 24 volts each, so when you put them in parallel, that just doubles the amperage. That's how I'm getting the 500 watts to the main computer. This panel right here in front to the right is partially in shade, so I'm only getting about 200 watts out of that one. All 3 of these panels are rated for 400 watts, and that's my first panel I got. That's also a 400 watt, but you can see now that it's September, it's not quite getting full sun, but I'm still getting about 200 watts out of that one too. So all set in the summer, I get more than enough to cover the electrical. But right about now in September, it's starting to get a little bit less. So all day I get free electricity usually, and then at night discharges a little bit of that. So this is the solar farm, and then right there I got my very first cheap panel. That's only about 150 watts, just kind of my backup charger. So way too much solar sitting here on the ground. And then of course I got the roof solar as well. You can see the controller for that right there. It's just for the, that is separate from the Chia computers. But quite a lot of solar around here. Can't beat free electricity. So if you've made it this far, you're as big a nerd as me, so I'll put up the apps for both of the power stations. On the left, you got the Farmer. That's going to be the Elite 100 V2. That's the one with the 1,000 watt solar input. You can see it's got more solar coming in, the 500 watt solar coming in. It is off grid because it knows that it's over 40%. And then on the right, you've got Gigahorse AC70. That one's just unplugged. I'm going to pull into the power on the Farmer one. You can see it's pushing 500 watts, and that's at 24 volts. I tried putting these in series, which would pump or double the voltage, which would be more efficient, and that blew up because it's a 37 volt open, I think. So that got over 60, and it only takes 50 volts. So I had to put them in parallel. That means I combined all the negatives and positives together. And then so I'm running 24 volt, but I'm still getting decent efficiency out of that. 500 is not bad for the two panels together. On the right here, you can see the AC70 is only getting about half that from that single panel. That's the 245 watt. And then you can see at the bottom, it actually keeps track of how much you've generated, which you can see is quite a bit. 71 kilowatt over the life of the AC70. On the left, again, in the Farmer, I haven't generated quite as much because I just started that. But you can also see when the solar hits higher than the output, the input from the solar is larger than the output. At the bottom, it keeps switching the time remaining. I like watching. Anytime I got more solar coming in, it says time remaining to charge. There's estimated charge time 30 hours. And then anytime it spikes, it'll flip back. But I'd say overall from between 10 a.m. to maybe 7 p.m., it's generally able to run on solar or charge up enough to compensate for running on solar. So definitely does not run 24 hours a day, but 8 hours a day of free electricity is a lot better than no free electricity. And of course, the biggest reason I did this is because it's just friggin' fun to set up. So